Okay, we are joined by Stephen Yasko, the host of the Long Island Sound podcast. Welcome, Stephen. Thanks for joining us.
I am so happy to be here because we're talking about two of my favorite subjects, Long Island, the place that we all live, and music. So I'm really excited to talk about that. And it's International Music Day. So
Super
what's better
excited.
than that?
Exactly.
Yeah, and Stephen, you have your own podcast, so you are really the expert on Long Island music.
I don't know if I'd call myself an expert, but I have, I would say, a very good curiosity about music. You know, it's really in even the term for your stuff, discovery. You know, discover Long Island, and that's what really kind of drove me to start the Long Island Sound podcast some 16 months ago. You know, so it was out of an admiration for singer-songwriters and the wellspring of music that we have here on Long Island. And, we just all came out of COVID. So I was driven by, hey, you know what? I need to make some connections and some community. And I tell you, it's been a wild ride ever since.
How many episodes have you done so far?
I, Believe it or not, I have 81 episodes under
Wow,
my belt.
that's
Uh,
awesome.
Yeah, I generally do one a week. It all started with a guy named Jim Small. We started another podcast that fell apart. And I found out, hey, there's got to be a better way to do it. And I'm a techie guy. So I found technology in order to do remote interviews like we're doing now.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, the musician community on Long Island, I just got to say this, it gives me chills. They are so generous. And one interview led to two, three, five other interviews and referrals. And just like us, we're just having a conversation about what we like. So that's why I love doing what I do.
That's great. And how many, well, really, who are some of your favorite local artists that you've had or your favorite guests so far?
Okay, so I've had that's a tough question because
I
I know I'm
know.
going to leave some people out. Um, so my favorite, let's go with my favorite artist that I've kind of had happenstance ran into. Really, my one of my top picks are the Como brothers. Okay, they're from Mount Sinai. They sound just like the Everly Brothers. They put out, and I'm not kidding, two songs a month, and they're really tied into the social media to, dangle that lure to attract people to their music. So I'd have to say the Como brothers are one of my favorites. A guy named who hasn't been a guest yet, Ed Travers, very famous on Long Island, plays a lot of Jimmy Buffett stuff. The consummate entertainer. I'm telling you, you go see Ed Travers anywhere on Long Island, and I guarantee you're going to have a good time.
You're going
One
to
of the
have
guys,
Parrot Heads join you too, right?
oh yeah, absolutely. Parrot heads and dead heads. What's better than that?
Well,
Uh,
I think
yeah,
what
go
you
ahead.
do, I think what you do with your podcast is so really interesting because so many people don't realize the depth and breadth
Mhm.
of Long Island music and the scene and the history and the impact that musicians on Long Island have made, in the music world and still continue to do so today. So it's really you have so much content to share.
Yeah, you know what it is? I feel like I'm just hitting the tip of the iceberg when it comes to that. And I just got to tell you really quickly how I came up with the Long Island Sound podcast. It was from a Billy Joel speech at the Long Island Music and Entertainment Hall of Fame, where he said, hey, you know what? The Long Island Sound is more than a body of water that separates us from Connecticut. And boom, the light bulb went off. I Googled it right away and I'm like, holy mackerel, nobody else has got this name. Grabbed it right away and then the ride kind of continued. But it's funny. One leads to another. I also got to throw kudos out to Mike Nugent. He's one of my other favorite artists. He was also my guitar teacher. And all these artists, whether they're up and coming or the well established, have some of these phenomenal stories that just kind of come out of left field. But I got to tell you about one that came to mind. Mary Lamont, she's the queen of country music for Long Island. Okay, she's a DJ on WUSB. And I had Mary, and she's a great country singer. And she had a story that came out of left field. She had a connection with Alice Cooper. And I was like, what do you mean, Alice Cooper? It was Alex Cooper's bass player who was a country music fan. She happened to be the receptionist for Alice Cooper in New York City, who talked her into being a country music star. So
Wow.
just cool stuff like
It
that.
is
That
cool stories
You
that
know,
you
Alice
find.
Cooper, for your, I'm a transplant from Arizona. Alice Cooper lives in Arizona. I've met him many times. He was actually a great tourism ambassador for us,
Wow.
and he's huge in Germany and international, especially still. And just really, really terrific guy. Interesting fact about him: scratch golf handicap.
oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Amazing golfer.
Now, you said you're from Arizona. There's another guest that I had, Kelly Baker, a phenomenal blues singer. She won the Long Island Blues Society, and she's been all over the place. I think she's signed by Sony. She's originally from Arizona, transplanted to
Hmm.
Huntington, and keep an eye on Kelly,
Oh, yeah.
Kelli Baker. She's really, really great on what's going on.
Invading Long Island, us
Yeah.
Arizona's. But I mean, people know, you said Billy Joel. People have heard of, Mariah Carey and Ashanti and all of these, Debbie Gibson.
Mm.
So, I mean, Pat Benatar, Joan Jett. There are so, so, so many. What do you think? What do you think the secret sauce is on Long Island that generates so much of this musical talent?
You know what? I think it's a couple of things. One, I'd have to say it's the diversity of Long Island. Hey, you know what? Where stones throw from New York City and Brooklyn, which is the center of the world, and then you have Long Island, which, for those who are listening who are not from Long Island, you got to come here because it's just not traffic and taxes. Okay. There are so many great things to do. And I think, if I can say, a great place to start is the Long Island Music and Entertainment Hall of Fame. I mean, you touched on the different artists out here. Miles Davis is from Long Island, and you have not only music, but you also have like all the famous comedians, Eddie Murphy, some of the other people. Eddie Money is from Island Trees, the town that I grew up in. Pat Benatar, I think, was from Lindenhurst or Massapequa or that areas. But and then you have, and this is what just to tell you something personal. I'm getting up there in age. I'm on the back nine, as they say. And I didn't want to get caught in just reminiscing about the music that I liked in the 70s. Wanted to keep it fresh. And that's what I love about my podcast, if I can do a plug, the Long Island Sound, is I
Absolutely.
opened myself to other genres that I typically wouldn't listen to. And one of them is hip hop. Okay. And I ran across two bands. One is called Aqua Cherry. It's a funk hip hop band. Energy will blow you out. Okay. Another one, oh God, what's their name? Oh, it'll come to me. Nonstop to Cairo. Okay.
Hmm.
I don't know how I found these guys. Uh, they just came out with an album, Kai. They had one of their members passed away who was a great artist. And what a great tribute album to their passing band member. It was really kind of cool. And then, I mean, I even had, yeah, go ahead. I'm
50th
kind of
anniversary
Of
of
hip
hip hop.
chatty
hop. Yeah.
Cathy here. The other thing is I had a hard rocker on. Okay. I'm not a hard rock guy, but I'm open to finding out what the heck drives you to hard rock music to get the angst out. And I spoke to a guy named Mark Valentino from Armageddon, of all names, and they're really well known for years here on Long Island. So it's kind of opened my eyes to be a little bit more curious and go on this discovery mission that I'm on.
Yeah, and then there's the whole documentary about Long Island's role in alternative music
Yeah.
and, famous DJs as well, like you said, entertainers like Larry the Duck.
Hmm.
Larry the Duck was a guest on my podcast. I used to listen to WLIR. That is a great documentary that you point out. You got to check it out. It's amazing the influence that a small radio station had in bringing in the UK invasion and punk music. And they were if I'm going to throw a little thing out there, they were the first ones to introduce U2 to the United States. How's
Wow.
that for
Amazing.
Long Island? And Larry's a great guy. He's also involved with the Long Island Music and Entertainment Hall of Fame. I had the great opportunity. I also write for nysmusic.com, and I got to do the grand opening. And I'm there, I'm meeting all these, I'm a schlub. Who the heck knows me, right? I'm meeting all these great people, but I got to tell you about one guy that blew my mind, a guy named Elliot Murphy. I had no idea who he was. Kindest man in the world from Garden City. Great story. He lives in Paris and he plays over 130 shows a year. He's in his early 70s. He's a great writer. He was in a Fellini movie. He couldn't make it here in the United States. He had this great album called Aqua Show. He's in the Long Island Hall of Fame, by the way. He's inducted by two of his friends, one being Billy Joel and the other one, Bruce Springsteen. And next thing I know, I'm interviewing him from Paris on my podcast. I mean,
Amazing.
who's got it better
That's
than
what
me?
I wanted to ask you is how do you find
Sure.
your artists, like when you're doing your research and when you're looking for your guests and things like that? Is it, by, word of mouth, or do you do your own research and reach out to them?
Yeah. So a couple things. One, I'll hit the social media. I've gotten guests off of TikTok who
Wow.
found the Long Island Sound podcast, if you
Yeah.
can believe that. A lot of it is referrals, really.
Yeah.
I think what it comes down to is the compliments I received is I've asked questions out of my own curiosity and I take an interest in their music. I listen. I delve into their music
Right.
before I have the interview. I look
Yeah,
up
of
their
course. Gotta do the
bios.
research, right?
Yeah, that's key. And you know what? Then it comes down to, hey, you got to talk to so and so. He's a friend of mine. He's going to love talking to you. What's so interesting in this crazy world we're in, I don't meet many of my guests until after the fact.
Wow.
And I'll walk into a bar or a venue and greet them, and oh, who's this white-haired guy? Oh yeah, Steve, how you doing?
Oh,
So a lot of that is referral. But a lot of that is me reaching out and seeing what's happening on Facebook and on all the other platforms. And it is amazing to me how I've gotten guests by just sending an instant message to say, hey, it's a benefit for them, right? I'm
Yeah.
featuring their music. I play 3 to 4 of their songs, exposing it out there. I lead them to their Spotify list, which they may make some ching on it, half a penny here, half a
right,
penny there. So
right.
I hope that
Steve,
answers your question.
Steve, another thing Long Island is famous for, as far as music, are our incredible venues
Yes.
Yeah.
to see a show. So, what are your favorite places to go see live music?
Okay, so I look at two different silos of looking at live music. Let's talk about the big venues out there. And you can kind of grab the town. So if you're going out on the night in the town, you're going to want to go to Farmingdale. There's a lot of live music. Farmingdale's exploding. It's really lively there. You got to go to Patchogue. Patchogue has music venue after music venue. 89 North is there. You got the Patchogue Theater there. Got to go to Huntington. You got the Paramount. Obviously, you can see the big shows there, but you can also go into the Legends Bar and see some local people that kind of warm up before you go into the show. So those are some of my favorite places. And then there's the small places. I like the neighborhood places. There are few and far between of those who will take the chance on a live original music. But I'll mention a couple. Katie's of Smithtown, really
Hmm.
great, very
Great one.
notorious for that. You've got Garden Grill in Smithtown. Smithtown Theater out in Riverhead is phenomenal. Nutty Irishman in Farmingdale. Bayport Tavern in Bayport. They're really consistent in having local bands play. And it's really kind of like a Cheers neighborhood place. I really love it. Mulcahy's
Yeah.
is another place. And I'll do a little plug too. Mulcahy's on June 27th has the Paper Bag Concert. The Paper Bag Concert is over 70 musicians playing across the evening on one stage, and they've been doing it for over 40 years.
Oh, wow. That's
So
incredible.
it's kind of like an underground thing that's going on. You can't just show up; you got to be invited as a recognized Long Island musician. One that I went to for the first time, unbelievable, is Stephen Talkhouse out in
Oh yeah,
Amagansett,
very
Hmm.
and
famous.
and
Andre was there.
I had the great opportunity, and it took a while to get Nancy Atlas, who is a well-known person out on the East End. She was the bar
Hmm.
band for Stephen Talkhouse for 16 years, and she's played with all the famous people you can imagine: Elvis
Yeah.
Costello, Clarence Clemens. You go down the list; it's just amazing the people that she's played with. So it's very inspiring. I saw her back in May, and I'm telling you, I was exhausted just watching her. She really puts a lot of energy
I've
into
seen
it.
her live too. She's pretty amazing. And I always think it's awesome on Long Island that just the musicians, the access of musicians that, that we have. For example, Montauk Lighthouse was doing a fundraiser and,
Mhm.
Paul Simon decided to to play. And you're
Yeah.
like, okay, we're a little
Just
bit,
go to
we're
that.
definitely spoiled in that area.
Yeah. I'll get into the videos, but I can tell you really a quick story. I'm interviewing this guy, Peter Mancini, great artist, right? And Pete tells me this story. He's playing out at a yogurt shop out in the Hamptons, right? Guess who walks by the yogurt shop? Paul McCartney.
Right.
Wow.
Next thing you know, he runs outside, talks to Paul, just a casual conversation, no cameras, stuff like that. Goes back in, plays his third set. Sir Paul McCartney walks back in with his wife and was dancing to Pete's music.
Oh,
That's
I
awesome.
mean,
I mean, that's a Long Island story right there
Yeah.
for you. I'll tell you.
yeah, yeah.
So,
But let's.
yeah,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry. Let's talk about the other venues that you got out there. So if you come into Long Island, you're going to go to the Long Island beaches, right? And after a long day at the beach, you're going to want to go to two places. One's the Boatyard in Oyster Bay along Ocean Parkway. Really nice venues taken over by a conglomerate of guys that are doing a really great job. And the other is Salt Shack.
Yeah,
So if
right
you
in
want to
Brooklyn.
go and listen to anything from tribute bands and you want to dance, those are the places to go to and have
Right on the water, as
Yeah.
we like
right
to
on
say.
the water. And
You
you know
bet
what?
you are. What's the
You can get a
secret?
coffee if you want.
The what?
Yes, the water. So, Steve, you've been great. You tell us where to see music. You told us what to watch. We got to watch Dare to Be Different, which is the documentary. We
Yep.
know we need to listen to Long Island Sound.
Yep.
And we know we need to visit the Long Island Music
Hall
and
of Fame.
Entertainment Hall of Fame.
Mhm.
I mean, you're like a one-man Discover Long Island when it comes to music.
I appreciate the accolades. You're really being nice, you know. So it's just I'm just a regular guy who loves music. I'm enamored by people who can write songs and perform and entertain us and say the things and articulate the things that I might be feeling in my heart that I might not be able to say. That's what I love about music.
That's amazing.
Well, we love introducing you to our hot teas.
Yeah, where can they find you? Why don't you plug your socials and how
Oh
to
yeah.
find your podcast?
Yep. So just search for the Long Island Sound. You'll find it on Apple Music, on Spotify, Stitcher, Google. It's up everywhere, but also go to gigdestiny.com and you'll find everything there for for the podcast, who our featured artists are, way to rate. Please rate and comment on the show. I love your feedback. I've got a listener line. I've got a lot going, and there's a lot I'm juggling to get it done. But when you're passionate about this, I love it. And I sign off, I may have spoken to you. I always sign off my program by saying, keep your spirits high, be generous with your joy, and let the music take you on a journey. And hopefully, that journey is to experience Long Island and all that we have to offer here. It's really a great place.
It's been amazing, Steve. Thank you so much for your time today.
Great. All right. We'll talk soon. Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Steve. Bye.
All right. Be well. Bye bye.